What's going on, everybody? This is Jeff with Vintage Vapors, and I am going to do a quick video tonight on how to prime a cartomizer to go into a carto tank. A lot of people that know me know this is kind of my thing, kind of how I enjoy to vape, and it is difficult. It's something that takes a little patience and a little time and pretty much a lot of spilled juice to figure out. So I'm going to walk through this as best as I can, just to kind of give you all an idea on how I use it, how my process works, and hopefully it'll help you. What I'm going to start out, what I use, as anybody knows, is the Bogue XL low resistance pre-punched cartos. Usually we carry them in stock at the Knoxville store. There's several websites you can get them. They come in a pack of 5. So I'm going to go ahead and take one out, and they're written on the side there as well that they're 510 XL low resistance pre-punched cartos. Some of them that you buy have the one hole, one bigger hole. The one that I prefer, just because they're the ones that I've used the most, have the 2 kind of smaller holes, one on either side towards the battery end, the low end of the carto. So the first thing that I'm going to do right now is I've got a Bogue F16 tank with a carto installed, and the tank is about half full. So I'm also going to show you how I remove the carto in the tank as I put in the new carto. It's kind of a process that I prefer to keep from draining a tank. The cartomizers that I prefer they don't have the flange on the end, so you have to be a little bit more careful when you're working with them not to pull the tank off of the cartomizer as you're working with it. Don't pull your drip tip off unless your carto is actually attached to a device, because you can't actually pull that whole thing out. Then you're going to have a pile of juice laying there. I like to, as I'm filling and using these, the long drip tip comes in handy for several different reasons. It allows you to fill it full. We'll go through all that here in just a minute, but I'm going to start out with, this is what I'm working with. This is the regular carto packaged up. When you get it, just take it out of the plastic. And then you are going to have 2 little rubber caps still in the ends of the cartomizer. And I don't know if you can see how well you can see this, but the one on this side is actually a little bit longer than this one. That's the one we're going to focus on primarily. When you pull it off, there is a little rubber tab that's down inside of there. Make sure you empty that before you start filling any further. And then I'm just going to rip the other one off. And there's a little plastic tip that covers the end. Just go ahead, and it's really easy if you've got a needle or anything like that, just to stick the needle in there and pull that little rubber cap off so that you can see down inside of your cartomizer. The first thing I really like to do is I always want to check my resistance just to make sure. I've had a lot of success with Bogues, but I just want to make sure before I prime it and put juice in there that this cartomizer reads out. It should read about 2.1 ohms, which it does. 2.1 is the resistance, so that's a good carto. That's usually what 99% of them read out when I test them for the first time. So the first thing I'm going to do here now is take the longer rubber cap, and I'm going to drop, I'm using Bule 6 milligrams, and usually it takes about 2 milliliters of fluid to fill up the cartomizer to get it primed well. Well, if you just start dripping it from the top, it's really hard to know when you've hit that 2 mil mark. You may think you've got it primed. It may look primed on the top end, but the bottom of the carto is still dry. So if you screw it on and fire that, you're going to burn that cotton filler inside, and you're going to have a nasty taste throughout the rest of the life of the carto. It almost makes it to where you just have to throw it away and start over. So what I do is I take the little rubber cap, like I said, the longer one, and I like to fill it about 3/4 of a way full, a little more than halfway. Then I take the carto battery in first, and I'm just going to stick it down in that little rubber cap slowly. When you do that, you will actually see juice start to come up and fill the carto. I hold it upright. I'm just trying to tilt it so you can see in through the camera. What I do is I push that up until that juice reaches almost the top section of the carto, and then I'll just pull it back down a little bit. And what that's doing is you're actually taking that juice that's in the little rubber cap and you're pushing it up and pulling it down and allowing suction and gravity to kind of do the job of filling the material inside. And the reason I like this method is because you are filling from the bottom first rather than dripping in from the top and not really knowing when your juice gets all the way to the bottom. So you just do this several times, just kind of go up and down. You can leave a little space at the end where you can actually squeeze it. And I know you can't see in right now, but at the top of the cartomizer, I'm seeing juice just kind of go up and down, up and down. Now it is filling that center air tube where your coil is. It's filling that, and that's fine, because here in a minute I'll show you how to blow all that out and get that excess out so you don't get any of that gurgling or leaking. So I just kind of keep pushing it, letting it soak in. The key is patience. I mean, it takes a little bit more time than it does to prime, say, a Pro Tank or T3 or EVOD. Those are really simple, but I've just found so much success lately with these cartos that I'd recommend anybody give it a shot and see what you think. If you ever want to watch it up close, I'll be more than happy to demonstrate for you at our shop or in person. But this is what I do every single time, and I've yet to have a burnt carto. I've yet to have gurgling. I've just been very successful with this method. So now I've got a little bit left in the bottom, and it's not really saturated. So what I'm going to do now is just take this, wrap the end in a paper towel, and just blow in it. And what that did, it blew a little bit of excess out onto the towel, not too bad. But I'm just going to take the rest that is in the little rubber tube now and just one more time push it down. And that's just soaking everything in. And you'll be able to hear, when I first blow into this, you'll hear a little gurgling, but you just kind of blow hard enough and then inhale, exhale until you get a clear inhale with no gurgling, and then you've pretty much got your carto primed. So you can see down in there now, the air hole, I mean, of course right now is going to have juice in it. There's no way to avoid that using this method, but it's a simple fix. Okay. Now that's a primed carto. I mean, that's, just took a couple minutes, not too bad. And then what I like to do again, and I've just kind of made this a habit, is I'll screw it on to my SVD, check my resistance one more time, should still read 2.1, which it does, and then I'll just go ahead and take a vape out of it. That air hole's clear, I'm not getting any gurgling, no burnt taste because it's saturated good enough that I fired it right then and no problems, hitting like a champ. It's got 2 mils in there, so okay. So now my carto's primed. So what I'm going to do is I want to replace this one that's in the tank currently. That's gone. It's getting a little bit bad. When they start going bad, you lose a little bit of, it turns into a tighter draw. Flavor kind of gets muted a little bit. The biggest thing that I notice is when I take the tank off, I've got a little bit of juice in the well of the mod because it's leaking a little bit. But the biggest reason, the biggest sign, the biggest thing you'll see that makes you know that it's time to change a carto is when that draw gets tight, because it should draw in the tank the same way that it drew just now when I screwed it on. It's a real simple procedure. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this end and I'm going to butt it up against the base of this carto. And I'm going to be sure, this is one thing that I had to learn, if you hold it down here and go to pushing, what you're going to do is you're going to push this top cap all the way off, and juice is going to be everywhere. So I'll hold the top cap, take this carto, and just push it in. And you can see now what's happening is I'm pushing that old carto out, and the new carto is sliding right in behind it. When you get up towards the top, you can just pull that out, push it up until that base fits flushed in there. Now you've got a brand new primed carto in the tank. The old carto is removed, so I'll just take the drip tip out. And one thing to always remember, right now if I go to stick this drip tip back in here, more than likely those O-rings aren't going to seal that tight enough. So what's going to happen when I push that in is I'm going to push the carto right out. And juice, it's going to be a big mess. So I'll always screw it back onto the device. And usually I'll tighten the carto tank up until I watch that little hole, the little air hole right there that you can see. I'll just keep spinning that carto until the tank starts sliding, and that's as tight as it needs to be. It won't over tighten, because what will happen is the tank will act, the cartomizer is screwed in, the tank will just keep rotating because it's just sealed by those O-rings. So now I can stick my drip tip in, take a vape. I've got a freshly primed carto, tastes great, the old one's out. Some people boil these, bring them back to life for the price of a pack of 5. I just toss it. Usually I can run probably 20 mils through a tank, maybe a little bit more or less depending on what kind of juice I'm running and that kind of thing. But that's pretty much it. If you ever have any questions or want to stop by and have me show you how to do this, I'll be more than happy to walk you through it step for step. But that's about as simple as it gets. I'm going to go ahead while I'm doing this though and top off the tank and show you why I prefer using this long drip tip. Even if I don't want to keep it as I'm vaping this tank, it's really handy. I've actually bought the little fill tool, and it makes sense. It sticks down in the carto, slides in, allows you to drip your juice in from the top, but I've ended up making more messes than I feel necessary. I just stick with the long drip tip. So what I'm going to do is take the tank back off of the SVD. Drip tip still installed. Same thing as when I slid that old carto in. You always want to hold those end caps when you start messing with the carto inside, because the last thing you want to do is pop one of those caps off and lose all of your juice. So if you'll just hold the bottom cap, usually I'll kind of put a finger on either side of the carto and then just push down on the drip tip. You can slide that drip tip down enough that I've got a good little gap right here. And it's big enough that I can stick the little needle tip down in, and I can just drip that juice in and fill that tank right up. And you can fill it almost to the very top. You don't have to worry about, it's not going to get into the carto because that drip tip is on there. And it's not going to flood the carto because the 2 holes that allow the juice to go back in as you vape it are outside. I've found that with a couple of the tanks like the AGR, when you fill them and the cartomizer is all the way in there, it causes them to flood because it's pushing fluid in those holes when they're in the tank. But by sliding them down like this, as you're putting that juice in, right now there's no way for juice to get into that carto. Only juice in there is what I put in there when I primed it. So now I'm going to hold that top cap again, and I'm going to slide that carto back up and seal it tight. Now a little bit of juice did come out of the top around the drip tip. Once again, remember, just make it a habit. Do not ever take the drip tip off of that tank unless it is screwed onto a device, because I guarantee you will pull that carto out and you'll lose all the juice that you've just put in there. So what I'm going to do is screw that device back on, the tank back onto my mod. Now I can pull the drip tip off, and I'll just kind of go over everything with the paper towel, wipe off any excess that may have been on there. Put my drip tip back on. No gurgling, perfect vape. This is, like I said, we showed you earlier, it's 2.1 ohms, and I usually rock it at around, this one's on 11 watts right now, and there's no burning. You don't have to worry about what happens in a pro tank is you just got a little bitty piece of silica that's saturated. So if you fire a 2 ohm pro tank coil on 11 watts, a lot of times it can't handle it. But there is so much filler inside of that carto that you can crank them up a little bit higher than you could a clear miser and not have to worry about burning that coil up or burning the juice off of the wick too fast and getting that burnt taste. So, like I said, if you have any questions, stop by. We'll walk you through it. But that's pretty much what I've got. Thanks for watching, and keep vaping.